Hello, everyone. We have a great guest today. We have Sam Daly Harris, one of the most impactful people in history. He's the founder and principal of Civic Courage. You do not want to miss this episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
This episode is made possible via the support of our sponsors, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd. Sam, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and excited to learn from you. I can't do you justice with a quick introduction, so I'm going to ask you to take a minute or two, even three if you need to. Tell us your story. I mean, you've done so much with results and microcredit and, oh my gosh. I mean, and you've worked with people like Muhammad Yunus and some of the real greats. Tell us a little bit about your career and the impact you've had.
Well, here's the thing. I would love to tell about my career, but I think it would be a little more useful to tell about how I got here first, and we can get into because it's quite unique. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in music. And I played percussion instruments in the Miami Philharmonic Orchestra in Florida for 12 years. And then 39 years ago, I founded the anti-poverty lobby Results. So it's quite a unique background in that way. And a lot of times I'm asked, well, wait a minute, music, poverty lobby, what was that about? And what was the motivation? When I look back in my life, there are a number of experiences that start pointing to a different direction. So I graduated from high school in '64 and played timpani in the orchestra at the graduation. And just before the ceremony, a flute player came back to the percussion section and told me that a high school fraternity brother, a year younger, had died the day before in a tractor trailer accident in Georgia. It was her next door neighbor, so she knew before I did. I was 17. I mean, mortality was an irrelevant concept. But during the mourning period, the funeral, after the funeral, I went with my friend's younger brother to get his report card from the homeroom teacher. It began to dawn on me that maybe I had 17 more months or years or minutes even. And the questions of purpose came up. Why am I here? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? And I'll give a little shortened version of the rest of this story. 4 years later, college graduation, Robert Kennedy's assassinated right in those days of graduation. It's another one of those, what is this life? What is this death? Why am I here kind of things? No answers. 9 years later, I always say I'm a little slow. I'm invited to a presentation on ending world hunger. This is now 1977. It's put on by the Hunger Project. And I go to this thing thinking, well, hunger is inevitable. What do I know? I'm a musician. I mean, it's inevitable because there are no solutions, because if there were solutions, somebody would have done something by now. I go to this thing and all of a sudden it's obvious. There's no mystery to growing food, clean water, basic health, literacy. I'm not hopeless about the perceived lack of solutions. I'm hopeless about human nature. People will just never get around to doing the things that can be done. But there's one human nature I have some control over, my own, and my question, why am I here? What am I here to do? So I get involved in a big way. This is the end of the story. In 1978 and 1979, I spoke to 7,000 high school students, classroom by classroom. And before I went into the first classroom, I read these statements from the US National Academy of Sciences, Food and Nutrition Study, and others calling for the political will to end hunger. So I asked the students, who's your congressperson? I don't want to know if you wrote him. I don't want to know if you met him, just the name. Out of 7,000 students asked, fewer than 3%, 200, could tell me the name of their member of Congress. Over 6,800, over 97% could not. And results starts in this gap between the calls for the political will to end hunger on the one hand, and the lack of basic information on who represents us in Washington on the other. I've spoken to college classes in the last 2 weeks twice, one at Princeton, one at University of Maryland. And I kind of asked, is anyone majoring in music here? I mean, it's not like you have to, but it's kind of a unique start. So whoever your viewers are out there wondering, well, I don't know if I can make a difference. Yeah, it can start out anywhere.
Yeah, it is interesting that all the people we think of as being remarkable were unremarkable before they did what made them remarkable, right? It's kind of the nature of things. They were ordinary people, not extraordinary. Well, Sam, you shared with me in advance a couple of observations that you wanted to share. I think it's great. You say there are three main messages in your presentation that you wanted to share. One is that you can make a profound difference on big issues with your voice as a citizen. Two, you probably haven't because of your sense of powerlessness. And three, you connect with organizations that are committed to dissolving the powerlessness. You can make a profound difference. So why don't you walk us through those?
Well, the thing is, I do this presentation. I have like 27 lectures, workshops in the first 4 months of 2019. And whether I'm talking to 250 citizen climate lobby activists or a bunch of beginner newbies, I do this same presentation because the activists, I say, look, I want you to see what I say to the newbies. And essentially it's, you can make a profound difference. And I'll give you an example in a moment with your voice as a citizen on big issues, not on the street light. Just changing the street light if you need it is great. But I mean on big, monumental, I don't think I could make a difference. No, yeah, on those. Number two, you probably haven't because of your sense of powerless and resignation about politics, especially federal politics. And the big number three is if, big word if, you connect with an organization that's committed to dissolving the powerlessness, you can make a profound difference. So let me give you an example of the profound difference first, and then an example of the barriers to the profound difference, and then the connection. So for example, Results Volunteers started lobbying in the early 1980s on child survival issues. And UNICEF, the UN Children's Fund, was reporting that 41,000 children around the world were dying every day from largely preventable malnutrition and disease. Things like measles coupled with malnutrition and other preventable diseases. Results Volunteers lobbied every year, not the whole year, but 3 months out of the year on things like child survival, 85, 86, you name it, 97, 98, 2000, every year. And the latest numbers from UNICEF is that the 41,000 a day has dropped to 15,300 a day. Now that's still scandalously high, but it's a major difference on a big issue. And the former deputy executive director of UNICEF, Kul Gautam, has said, you know, it's because of Results. US government came on board, funding increased, other countries came on board because of that, you know, and it's made a very big difference. That's just one example of making a profound difference on a big issue. I could give others. Second one is you probably haven't because of your sense of powerlessness. And if I could, I want to share this quote from Frances Moore Lappé, who wrote Diet for a Small Planet more than 40 years ago. In a more recent book, she said, "A real problem is not a heating planet or rampant malnutrition. We only have one real problem, our own feelings of powerlessness to manifest the solutions right in front of our noses." And so I want to kind of get to more of that predicament, and maybe I'll stop it in a moment. I was talking with the head of organizing for a group your viewers would know very well, who said to me, we can't let our volunteers write letters to the editor or op-eds because they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the organization. protecting the brand. Well, so much for empowering people. And then I tell about one of the groups I've coached for its first 7 years. Citizens Climate Lobby volunteers had more than 4,200 letters, op-eds, and editorials published in 2017. So one group's saying they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the organization. The other group is saying, what do we got to do to help them get it right? And give that to them. And then as a result, they end up with 4,200 plus letters, op-eds, and editorials. So the predicament isn't like, okay, I want to make a big difference. I do feel a bit powerless. I'll just go over there. Well, no, over there might not be empowering. It might be one of the, we can't let our volunteers write letters, op-eds. So then in my presentations, and I'll stop here, I pass around a sign-up sheet, giving people an opportunity to check results focused on ending global and domestic poverty, CCL, focused on climate solutions, the Quaker Lobby, FCNL, Friends Committee on National Legislation, this year focused on overturning the authorization for the use of military force. 3 days after 9/11, an authorization was passed. It was never repealed. So Presidents Bush, Obama, Trump can all just go into military excursions without Congress approving that. And the fourth one is American Promise, focused on money out of politics and overturning Citizens United. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah. I mean, what great evidences of impact. You had a second observation that most groups that do advocacy are not committed to dissolving their members' sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
Why is that, and how do they reverse that?
Well, wow, the why question's a big one. But I'm going to tell another story, and this about that. And so I was hired a year ago, August, by a group that your viewers would know very, very, very well, to help coach on starting chapters. And I was fired a year ago, August, by the same group. And I said to them, I know you're hot to trot to get on the road and to do your group starts. I've sent you a script that you could use on the road. Let's read through the script, let's edit it, and we can practice it. And they said to me, we don't have to practice. We're not going on the road. If a volunteer wants to start a chapter, they can go to our website and study the template for starting a chapter and lead it on their own. And my whole thing is, I work with staff and they practice, and when they stand in front of the room the first time, it's the 9th time they've done it because we've practiced the thing. So I lasted 3 weeks, and I had an exit interview with the executive director and president, and I said, you have an amazing mission. I love your mission, but you have a problem. Your team doesn't want to practice. And if you don't practice, you don't get much better. Even championship professional sports teams practice. And I was meeting with the actress in New York City for lunch, and she said, even actors and actresses practice. And I said to him, and especially, most people are afraid of making big asks of volunteers, including staff. But if you practice, you can get over that fear of making big asks. So why? You asked why, the big why question. I don't know. I think everyone just doesn't want to look bad. So if I'm a staffer, I don't want to stand in front of a room of 30 people to start a chapter and nobody raises their hand. It's safer for me to tell you to go study the template and lead the first meeting yourself. I think there's this rampant fear of failure, fear of looking silly in NGOs, the nonprofit groups, And certainly in ourselves, volunteers. Let me share this one other quote that I love so much. Harvard professor Lawrence Lessig, who works on getting money out of politics, said, we did a poll recently. This is 3 years ago. He said this. We did a poll and found that 96% of Americans believe it important to reduce the influence of money out of politics. Isn't that, well, no, there's more to the quote. 96 want money out of politics, he said, but 91% don't think it's possible. That's the politics of resignation.
Right.
The politics of resignation gives you a way toward winning. If we can find a way to thaw the resignation, then we can find a way to winning. And that's my gig with Civic Courage, working with groups to thaw the resignation, to create a structure of support that when volunteers raise their hands and say, I'm in, I want to join this chapter, I want to be in this group. In what group? What is the volunteer promised to the organization? What is the organization promised to the volunteer? And is it powerful? Will it dissolve the powerlessness? That's really the question.
Well, it's really amazing, the power of it. And so you say if a group is not helping their members move out of the comfort zones with encouragement and support, is not encouraging members to have breakthroughs, then the group is not committed to dissolving powerlessness.
Yes. So in Reclaiming Our Democracy, toward the end of the book, there's this drawing, and there's a small circle labeled your comfort zone. And then there's this larger circle over here labeled where the magic happens. Now, a lot of people like to stay in their comfort zone. Why? It's comfortable. But if you press through the comfort about writing that letter to the editor and hitting send, or about making that call to the congressional scheduler to make that appointment, sometimes it's not comfortable at first. And you're moving out of your comfort zone. But if you're well coached, where you're headed is where the magic happens. And so, yeah, it's really critical that people feel like, I've joined this group, I've been in it 6 months, and I'm doing things I never imagined I could do. I'm seeing a part of me I didn't know was there. That's empowerment.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Sam, you've had an extraordinary career. What is your superpower?
What is my superpower? I think I'm in on the joke. I actually know that people can make a difference, and I keep my eye on that ball. I look at the news, yeah, and I get a little depressed by the news, yeah, but I look what the grassroots groups are doing. Last year, the president called for a 31% cut to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, which over the last 17 years, along with its partners, had saved 27 million lives. Results volunteers got 162 Republicans and Democrats to sign one letter to the top appropriators on the subcommittee that appropriates it, saying, don't cut it. The appropriations subcommittee has 9 people on it. When those 9 subcommittee members get a letter signed by 162 saying, pay attention to the Global Fund to fight AIDS. So I pay attention to those volunteers who are getting 162 Republicans and Democrats to say, no, don't cut the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. When I look at the Citizens Climate Lobby last year, had enrolled 45 Republicans and 45 Democrats in the House Climate Solutions Caucus, when 4 years ago, you couldn't get one Republican to put their name on anything with the word climate in the title. How exciting does that get about breakthroughs and new territory? So I'm in on the joke that people think, somebody thinks, everybody thinks we can't make a difference. I know that we can. and I keep my eye on the ball of all those who are to really feed me.
That's a powerful message. Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We know you're busy. Before you go, would you take just a minute and tell people how they can learn more about Civic Courage and how they can connect with you personally?
Okay, great. So civiccourage.org is the website. And actually, if you're interested in a lecture or workshop or whatever, I'm doing book groups where people are getting together, reading Reclaiming Our Democracy, and then I'm phoning in if it's far away. Sam at civiccourage.org. So it's as simple as Sam at civiccourage.org.
Fantastic. Well, Sam, thank you again for being with us. And we wish you every success in continuing to change the world. You're such a great inspiration for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thank you for listening. Devon Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devon's mission by visiting helpdevon.org right now.